All right, all right. Welcome, everyone. It's Chris Fastine. I'm your treasurer from the Outshine board, and welcome, I guess, to day 9 already of the film festival. Time flies when you're having fun. So we're already into our second weekend right now. We have a really great weekend of really amazing content, of which you guys just saw our wonderful film, Steelers, and we're super excited to have some talent here as well. I think, though, first we're going to go ahead and do a nice shout out to our community partners. So the first of our partners for the night is Equality Florida, and we know the amazing advocacy and political work that they do. So let's go ahead and show their film. All right. And if that music doesn't want you to spring into action and do something like vote, I don't know what will. So thank you so much to Equality Florida. Our next is very suitably is our very own Nadadores. It's the gay and lesbian swim team here locally in Miami. We're so happy to have you as a community sponsor. I know I've got a lot of friends out there. So let's go ahead and show their video. Great. Thanks so much to the Nadadores. I also want to give a special shout out to our friend and fellow board member, Dino Mosquero, who's a member of the swim team. I know there's also several members who are part of our producer circle. So great. So thanks so much to our wonderful staff, to everyone here. And without further ado, I'd love to go ahead and introduce, we've got a couple special guests from the film. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and bring on Eammon Ashton-Atkinson, who's the director.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going, Eammon? Good to see you.
Great.
And I believe we also have Drew. If Drew could go ahead and join us. Drew Bear.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hey, how are you?
Yeah, no problem. You give me your voice. Great. Great. So what an amazing film. What a fun film for all of our audience. So many places I could start, but just to get us rolling, this is an informal conversation, so anyone jump in at any point. But maybe to get us started, even could you tell us how did you actually pick? There's so many wonderful characters, but how did you actually pick, Nick, Simon, and Drew to be kind of like the feature story for which you kind of wove this entire story of the team?
Yeah, well, there are some wonderful people in the club that I could have picked, but it all kind of happened by accident. So I injured myself before this tournament, and I work in TV as a news reporter, and I knew I wanted to make a documentary about the club. So I hired this nice cinema lens, and I just started filming on the first day, and I didn't have any of them lined up actually. And I was chatting. Well, I'd sort of been chatting with Simon in the past at the club over a beer, and we'd been talking about our similar experiences with depression and taking antidepressants and stuff. So I knew I really wanted him to talk. And so I went about trying to convince him, and it took like a good day or two because he kept flip-flopping, not really sure whether he wanted to, share all these personal details on film. And then we had that first training session you see at the start of the film, and just by chance I sat next to Nick, the head coach, on the bus back to the hotel, and I was talking with her and said, "Oh, Nick, how did you get into rugby anyway?" And she told me the story about her grandfather, and I was like, "Brilliant, you're the second person."
Mm-hmm.
And then I said to her, "Look, I need 3 people. Who do you recommend?" And she said, "Well, why not Drew? Because we can talk about Drew with his drag and all of that kind of stuff." And as it just by chance, it actually filmed Drew doing all of his wonderful performances, as you see there. Yeah, previously, just I sort of filmed them for free for the club to kind of give a bit of social media promo. So I had all this amazing footage that I kept of him. So it was very much a project where all these sort of stars aligned, and it was just very much meant to be, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Great stories. Yeah, and I think it's, each one is so unique. Like Nick really just puts her heart out there, and you just really feel like the emotion, how much she loves the sport, how much she loves this team. Drew, we get to kind of go through this whole journey of kind of your different aspects of your life, and then as well as we see sort of Simon's sort of like progression and transformation as well. Hey, before we keep on going, we have one more special guest, not from the film, but our very own board member, Dino Mascaro. We heard him getting his shout out, so I want to go ahead and bring Dino into the room. Dino, how's it going?
Hey, you guys, how are you?
Dino is in the swimming equivalent of the Steelers. He's on our gay swim team, the Nats. So welcome yourself, Dino.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes,
you can.
How are you guys? I love your film. It was so awesome to see a documentary about a gay team. I mean, I can only imagine what it is to be playing rugby. I mean, I only swim with our local gay swimming team, and actually we've been around for a long time, and we do compete, but we don't have this kind of like the same expectation of the things that you were talking about in the film, this high expectation of toxic masculinity sometimes, that comes with rugby. So and swimming, is an individual sport, so it's not quite the same. So we do have also a water polo team. So we do have, the team playing together, but, for the most part, it's either, individual or relay. So, but I think you capture, the essence is really good what you did. And the 3, individuals, I mean, including Drew and Nick and Simon, right? Simon. Yeah. And showing their individual stories and differences and all different backgrounds. So I thought it was fantastic. So
thanks, Dina. Cheers.
Congratulations. Yes, I hope you show the film everywhere. So
yeah, for sure. Maybe you can, like the point that Dino brought in, so maybe you can talk about, so people I think have this perception of like rugby players being like the sort of tough and very sort of almost very, very masculine sport, and not that masculinity is necessarily equated with like homosexuality or LGBTQ, but just kind of talk to us, just your experience in the sport, but then also kind of almost seeing it from a different lens, or maybe not so different lens when it's actually done with entirely like a gay league.
Drew, you've got any comments to me?
Yeah, we'll let Drew take that
one. So I've been playing for now, I think, 19 years. So I started out playing in a university and, general standard rugby team and whatnot. And I think with the rugby team, there goes along the general, what we probably would quote today as toxic masculinity, in the sense of being bros, being acting a certain way. And I was still like trying to figure out my own sexuality at that period of time. But for me personally, because I was a athlete through and through, I focused on like the athletic part of rugby and like proved myself as a athletic, competitor in the sport of rugby. So very much I got my accolades and respect from my teammates because of that. And then eventually when I came out, they thought it was amusing, mainly because one, I was a Black person playing what was typically a white man's sport. So generally I was like the only Black person on the team, and at the same respect, all the clubs that we played against were predominantly white. So I was the token Black guy. So when Black Hispanic guy. So when I came out as gay, they were very much like, "Oh, you're a triple threat," you know. You very much fit all the quotas that we need to fit for our rugby club: gay, Hispanic, Black. You tick every box. So, but I think if it wasn't for the fact that I was a competitive athlete and played the sport fairly well, it might have been a different story or a different welcoming, if you will. But because I had that, I guess, like I said, I had the respect of the rest of my club, the rest of the team, and they very much didn't want me to leave just because of that. We still, ran into a lot of issues that, we probably aren't accepting today, but I accepted at that point in time because I was like, oh, okay, they accept me as a person. So that's the first step. Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll tackle everything else as it comes along.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. But sometimes you just have to get your foot in the door in some way. If that's your access point, and then it's just kind of go from there, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. And it was just like, okay, like I'm battling different minority issues as is. So getting the foot in the door, getting people to like me, getting into a position where it was senior enough, I was on the board, and people respected me. That was kind of the benchmark, and that was at that point in time sufficient.
Right. Interesting. Maybe the same question to you, Eammon. Like you talk about in the film, particularly how you kind of had this difficult time in school, or with things, just some incidents that happened throughout your childhood, but yet it seems like I don't know, rugby seemed to be like that kind of, I wouldn't call it salvation, but it was like sort of that one moment of whatever, who cares, no one cares about who I am as a person, but how well I play.
Yeah, totally. I think for me, it was very unexpected. So, rugby at school and stuff, and sport at school was always this place where I didn't really belong. And so when I moved to London and stumbled across this team, and suddenly I found this sort of place where it was this amazing community, and also a community that wasn't just based around the club scene, going out, getting drunk, with people taking drugs and all that sort of stuff. So to have this place where it's based around fitness and exercise, being outdoors, but also being gay and having gay friends, it was just this kind of amazing experience for me. And it was very much a case of, I wasn't expecting it. You kind of don't think of rugby and gay as being two things that necessarily mix. So I guess that's kind of like the thesis of the documentary is, and I say it at the end, you keep searching for happiness if you haven't quite found it, or if you haven't quite found where you belong, because you just might stumble across it where you least expect.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Can I, Eammon, I think that you touch in so many different issues that are so important in the gay community and in the gay sport community as well. I mean, the fact that you show, not only the different backgrounds and the different even nationalities, I guess, because one was Australian, one was Welsh, and an American, right? So, and the fact that you touch, particularly in the issue of depression within the gay community, and issues that they're not talk about much, especially within the sports. So I thought you did a great job in that regard. Can you tell us about how is Simon doing now? I think at the end you mentioned in the credits that he's like weighing off the antidepressants, but how is he doing today?
He's good, I think. I mean, he's had a really tough year because his dad passed away, and he was sick for a couple of years. And it's not what I think is so beautiful about Simon and Simon's story is that A, he's so honest, and B, from the outside, you kind of look at this guy who's athletic, he's good looking, you know, he's someone who you think just has it all figured out. And when you kind of get to know what's happening under the surface, it just shows like how we often really don't know what's happening under the surface. And he was really, really brave, because when, as I mentioned before, we were going back and forth about whether he would do it. And when he finally said, yes, let's do it, he sort of said, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly and not really have any hold anything back. And I think he did a beautiful job of that. And really it's the honesty that these three characters brought to the film that to me makes it so special. He is back now in the UK, living with his mum. He had briefly moved to America, but COVID hit, so he went back. And I think you know, he is just kind of just still working on you know, getting to where he wants to be, but is, you know, I think he's in good spirits. And he said that he's gotten a lot of positive feedback from people from watching the film. And this film premiered in New Zealand just a couple of weeks ago, and I got a message from this 17-year-old boy who went in there and said that he was having a hard time with mental health issues, and he went and saw the film with his parents and said it really gave him a lot of hope that things do get better. And you know, without Simon sort of sharing his story like that, you know, I think it will go a long way in hopefully inspiring people. Yeah.
And Drew, I mean, talking about your, if I found fascinating the part when you were talking about, you know, just coming onto your own and just performing, you know, at the drag show and finding that as something that you embraced, not just for these events after the competition, but you like that, but you face some backlash, right? Is that right? Can you talk about that? And did that impact your job, or do you find any issues out there as a masculine gay guy? So
Yeah, no, completely. I think that, you know, there was, before the whole RuPaul Drag Race trend and interest, you know, I distinctly remember when Tinder first came out and you could like attach or link your Instagram to the profile, so people could look at your photos on Instagram. And I remember having matched with people and having conversations, and then after the fact, go into my Instagram and see that I had, you know, a handful of drag photos, and then all of a sudden unmatch or just not talk to me altogether. And then I realized, okay, because, you know, there's that whole objective that certain gay men have, that they want that straight acting male as a boyfriend or someone they want to date or have sex with. Any form of flamboyancy or any form of campness is just then pushed to the side because you're not fitting that manly persona that they're looking for. And then all of a sudden, now that, you know, RuPaul Drag Race is now a massive thing, you just see everyone embracing the whole drag trend and fantasy, and, you know, doing their makeup, wearing wigs, wearing heels, whatever it might be. And now it's no longer a thing. So to me, it's amusing, and I got a lot of pushback on that. Work-wise, I actually have been very fortunate on the teams that I've worked with, and I've invited, you know, peers that I've worked with on my team or outside my team to come watch our shows, and they've loved it, and they've come every year to enjoy it. But it is very much a thing in the industry that I work at. Not only am I, you know, battling the fact that it is predominantly white in senior leadership roles, but I'm also battling the fact that I'm gay, and I don't have that commonality to be able to speak to senior management, and talk about generic sports or what is heteronormative conversation or discussions. But other than that, I very much am my authentic self at work and outside of work. I'm not like a different persona. So people appreciate that, I guess, and I very much open myself to allow people to see that drag persona that I like to, very much, emulate when we put on a show as and when.
Can I jump in there? Because I think one of the things I found interesting, touching upon some of what you were talking about, Drew, as a group of people that come together basically because we've been discriminated against. So people in the LGBTQ plus rainbow. The predominant group of that is gay white males, and often, like, I think all the recent events, the Black Lives Matter movement, trans rugby players who are looking at a ban from World Rugby, it's forced us to look at ourselves as well, because for a group that comes together from this point of being discriminated against, sometimes the gay community does a lot of discriminating within itself and outside, and you just have to look at Nick's character, who's the head coach, who is this brilliant rugby coach, and she faces a lot of sexism in her role, even at this gay tournament where people write her off. And I have to admit, when I went down to the training session and for one of the first times, and like, oh, this is our head coach, I did have that thought, oh, who is this woman head coach and why is she teaching me how to play rugby? And I hope the film as well, like, I got some feedback from someone when I was finishing one of the first cuts. They were like, you need to establish Nick's credentials up front, otherwise we think she's just this PC coach that you've put in, who's leading this gay team. And I was like, I actually like the fact that through the film you get to know who she is, and you might actually have that thought as an audience member at the start, but by the end you're thinking, wow, she is an incredible coach, she loves her team, she deserves to be there, and hopefully break down that kind of stereotype or prejudice we might have.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to jump in real quick just to add quickly to what Eammon said, and in the fact that not only did she deal with sexism within the club, the league that we played in, but she very much dealt with it even in our own club with some of the senior players who had been playing rugby since, they were a child. And for them, it was like, why am I listening to a female who doesn't know how a man plays rugby? So, she was dealing with it and battling it with it on multiple fronts and having to constantly prove herself. And many of us know what that's like and how that is, regardless of, the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you still get the sense that she really commands a lot of respect of the team. Like, I think after you see the first match, she says, like, you guys don't play that way. Like, I think there's some type of confrontation. It's like, that's not how we play. That's not our style. And people seem like, they're scared, like they know that they've disappointed her and they want to change things. And I think, definitely within at least the team environment, she's like built that credibility and respect.
Just when she
Say that more time, Eammon, please.
Sorry, was that?
Yeah, could you just repeat that last part? I think you cut off a second.
Yeah, she cringes when she sees that part of the film. She hates herself shout. It's a great moment.
No, and I think the fact that you show that gays and lesbian can play together, that we are not confrontational, because there is also that myth that gay men and lesbians don't mix well, or they somehow we have to be separated. And the fact that she's leading a bunch of masculine guys playing rugby, speak volumes. I think that she's a perfect example for the film and for the for the sport too, so that that women can be included as well. So
I think it was important in the end that she was one of the lead characters, because I think it she had a lot of important things to say that, you know, the film needed to include.
Why did she stop being the coach, by the way? Was that something that she needed to stop, or she wanted to stop, or?
I think she'd done it for 3 years, and she lived on the opposite side of London, and it took her about an hour and a half to get there, and she had some sort of personal changes with her family that meant it was very logistically difficult to do that, to keep doing it. So I think she was like, I've done my 3 years, time to move on. So it wasn't leaving on bad terms or anything like that. So
okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So you said you shot the film. I mean, it sounds like you said this thing happened almost accidentally because you got injured, I guess, before the competition, right, Eammon? And then so you shot the film obviously over I guess just probably a few weeks or so, right? And then, but what was the whole process of actually getting the whole thing edited? Like what happened afterwards and getting distributed?
Yeah, sure. I shot it over 3 days actually, and a little bit of sort of stock footage, I guess you'd call it, that I'd shot previously for the club just to do social media videos for them. And I started editing the film, and initially I didn't put myself in it. It was going to be a self-narrated film, and I edited about 40 minutes of it. And then at some point I wiped my hard drive to kind of make my computer fast again, and I forgot to back it up. So I lost basically half an edit of the feature, and I was like, oh my God. And so I couldn't bear to touch it again. And so I think about a year went by, and I moved to New York in the meantime, and I had a lot more spare time in my hands, so I wasn't working as much. And then Israel Folau, the Australian rugby player, started posting all these homophobic comments on social media, and that blew up. And I was like, you know what, I've got this film sitting on my hard drive. I need to finish this story because I want people to know that being a rugby player, you can be a gay rugby player, and you're entitled, you know, to your place on the pitch. And so I thought, well, the edit before wasn't really working. I need to narrate it as a technical device to kind of drive the story forward and explain what's happening and just make it a bit more engaging. And I thought, well, if my voice is in it, I need to explain why is this random Aussie voice narrating the film. So I need to tell my story. And that's how it kind of came to be. And I would edit 5 minutes a day, and my husband would come back from work, and I'd force him to watch the next 5 minutes. And I basically said, I'm not leaving the house until I've added 5 more minutes to the timeline each day, and just got it done. And then, submitted to a bunch of film festivals, and I've just had this incredible response. And I'm talking with some distributors now in the UK and one in Australia, and it's going to have a theatrical run in Australia and New Zealand, which is just beyond my wildest dreams, and we're trying to get it distributed. So if anyone in the US knows any contacts, please let me know, because we would love to. I think it is a story that resonates with so many people.
That's great. No, I think, and you bring up this interesting story. I know our friend Dino has to leave, so I'll ask one question. I'll ask Dino his one last question or anything to jump in. But I mean, how do you think you said the reception's been good, but overall, what's your feeling about, like, for instance, like this homophobic player in Australia? What's the ability of film and film festivals to really change people's hearts and minds, or just sport to change people's hearts and minds?
Yeah, it all adds to the conversation, doesn't it? Like, you know, the work that the original players did. You know, we all stand on each other's shoulders, and like Drew has been in that club for many, many years and done some incredible work, and he set up that charity fundraiser that you saw in the film. And now that's like a staple, and so people just kind of stumble across the club through going to this event. So like, I'm hoping this film just adds, you know, one more piece in the puzzle as we kind of fight the good fight. And Drew, did you want to?
Yeah, so, you know, I think for me it brings a bit of humanity to the people that are highlighted in the video, in the sense that hopefully people see us as a normal day-to-day. We have our emotions, we have our strengths and interests in the sport, and actually you see that sportsman mentality that heterosexuals generally feel and go through. The fact that they go through the emotional curve of wanting to compete, wanting to be the best, wanting to win whatever tournament or game or match or whatever it might be. And actually, we have that same drive and objective, that it's not just based on this stereotypical fantasy that people are like, oh, well, you know, we join rugby, gay rugby, because we want to have some sexual connection with people. Actually, no, that's not the fact. It's about community. It's about other interests outside of the general, you know, social dynamic of the gay community. It's about building friendships. And then those who are very athletic and competitive, they just want to marry the two of playing the sport that they love, but playing with people that also have that same interest and also want to socially hang out outside of that game. So, you know, for me, I think what Eammon did was bring all of those emotions, thoughts, interests, experiences together in this film. So then you see, actually, we're no different to, you know,
Anyone else?
The standard rugby team that plays. That might be different to us, but actually we can probably play against the best of them, and we have shown that and proven that very much so. So yeah, for me, it was a great film to see in a different side that people get to see of us. It wasn't boasting. It was very much just matter of fact. This is who we are. This is my personal experiences, and I want to share that with you, and hopefully you can relate in some manner.
Yeah, that's amazing. I see our friend Dino had to jump off. I think we have another Q&A coming up shortly, but before we wrap things up, I'd love to ask a couple more questions. But so what's next for you? Maybe Drew, and then Amy, guys can jump in.
And Drew,
oh yeah, I did notice the nail polish. So yeah, actually, so first, what's the so there's a scene in the movie where you see everyone like painting their toes, and like what was that? Give us the scoop on that.
So at the time, James Haskell, who is an English professional rugby player, he painted his toenails. And he was very much saying, he was like, oh, you know, it adds an extra layer. So, because the problem is when you're in, you know, playing a certain position, your toes get stepped on. So then you get all these dead nails and whatnot. So he was like, oh, I paint my nails to add an extra layer of protection so that, you know, if for whatever reason I get stepped on, it won't be as bad. And I thought it was, you know, hilarious that, you know, this big, broad, straight, 6'3" blonde English player was painting his toenails. I was like, oh, we should just do that as, you know, bringing the team together before we play our games. And it's an activity that we all do. So it was very much, you know, we all laughed. And it was, you know, one of those things where we knew our nails were painted, but you know, your feet are in rugby boots, so no one else really knows until maybe you take them off, or you're wearing, you know, sandals or flip flops or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. So, for me now, you know, I paint my nails now because actually I realize that, you know, there's not this all the gender normative stereotypes or rules that we were brought to you. I'm actually like, you know, why is it just women that are allowed to paint their nails? Why not men? I love the fact that I have color on my nails. I think it's fun. You know, I look swish. Why not?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, extra flash when you look at your hands, right?
Yeah. Although the interviews that I've been doing for jobs over the past, you know, 4 or 5 months have been interesting in the sense, if I have my nails painted, I very much have to be concentrated and not showing them.
Mm-hmm. Like this.
Yeah. They're just like,
yeah. Yeah. Right. What's he holding? Yeah.
Yeah. So Oh, go on, Eammon.
Oh, you asked before, like, what's up next? I'm moving to DC to do some reporting on the election, but I'm very much looking for my next documentary project. So, if anyone watching, I'm very interested in obviously LGBTQ plus stories. So if anyone has any ideas for things that would make a good documentary, please let me know. And I just want to try and transition from doing my, being a full-time journalist to more of a documentary filmmaker. So this was very much a test to see if I could do it. And I've loved every step of the way. And thank you guys for having me in your festival and having this film. And this is sort of our American debut. And we wish we were there in person and it was in a cinema. But hopefully we're not too far away from that in the future. When COVID gets under control.
Yeah, no, very good, very good. Any last parting thoughts that you guys want to share? I mean, there's so much you could have covered in the film. There's so many more questions. I know everyone's going to want to watch the film now, but it's just a taste. But any parting thoughts of either with this, with film festivals, anything that you would like to leave us with? Maybe Drew, and then Eammon, we'll give you the last word.
Sure.
Sure. I guess from my perspective, I think it took me a very long time to figure out, who I am and the fact that I didn't need to force or try to fit into any gay particular category because I didn't. And actually being who I am, I'm the happiest. And it took a long time. And I would say to anyone who's interested in sports or being an athlete, like not to limit yourself just because of the fact of your sexual orientation or your gender. Very much, believe that you can do that and focus on that. And, everything else in terms of your sexual orientation, so on and so forth, doesn't define who you are. I think there's multiple facets of who we are. I consider myself an athlete. I consider myself a Black Hispanic man. I consider myself a gay man. I consider myself a gender fluid man, a drag queen when I want to be. And, I slot into all of those different personas, so to speak, as and when, and not any one of them define just who I am in totality. And I think everyone can hopefully see that within themselves as they figure out who they are over time. So just trust that process.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Any parting thoughts or anything for you?
I would just say, if there's any aspiring filmmakers out there watching, I'm self-taught cameraman. And, if you want to get out there and make a film and do something, just literally try and pick up a camera, teach yourself how to use it and go out and find a story. So that's what I did here. And, I'm so proud that it's gotten to where it has. And, thank you very much for picking the film for your festival.
Yeah, no, we're super happy to have you. And I think that's everyone has a story that they can tell, to feel empowered to share it. And we really just appreciate both Drew, even all the characters. I mean, I call them characters, but all the players, just how generous, everyone was. And I think it's certainly the themes of hope and also the themes of that you can do whatever you want. And, no matter what, just play hard and play well. And I think it was a really amazing film. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you guys. It was great being there.
All right. Thanks so much.
This is me, 12 years old, joining my first rugby club in Australia. And this is me now. I'm a reporter and a cameraman, so I'm used to telling stories, but I've never told one this personal. Poofter, faggot. The bullying was unrelenting, especially in sports class. So I never imagined that a rugby club would one day change my life.
Nerves. I found that I had these really great players who had a real lack of self-belief. I can be a really confident gay person on the sports pitch, That doesn't belong to me.
There's this element of being a rugby player, even as a gay rugby player, that there's a certain masculinity that you need to maintain. To me, that's bollocks. You know, I will be tough and brutal and kick your ass on the pitch. When I'm off the pitch, I will be as flagrant and as flamboyant as I want.
I'd never had depression before, but I was definitely at that, you know, like I was at the lowest of the low. And just when I was about to walk away from rugby, but something told me, no, rugby can still help you, then the club and this season saved my life, probably saved my life, you know.
The referee often doesn't recognise me, so I feel like I'm still needed to be validated by men.
That is all I want from you for 40 minutes. You absolutely have it in you. You've got more in that tank.
So for me, this isn't a coming out story or a story about winning a tournament or even about being gay. It's a story about searching for where you belong and never giving up, because you just might find happiness where you least expect.